Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Tuesday, September 9th, 2025, and today we're talking about different CSA models, farming people's yards, and when the heck to pull out those tunnel tomatoes, so let's do it. All right, friends, welcome to Tilth Tuesday. Every Tuesday this year will be brought to you by our friends at Tilth Soil. If you're looking for compost or propagation mix, check out tilthsoil.com. Link will be in the show notes. I hope everyone's weeks have kicked off nicely. I had a mildly productive day yesterday, getting some spinach sown in the tunnel and slowly chipping away at the milpa harvest. I've still got a fair amount of popcorn left to get out of there, plus some beans, but my plan is to get all that cleaned up and into winter hardy cover crop by the middle of next month, and then use that space again for a similar planting next year, rotating the corn row with the squash row, I guess. More on all that later, though, because it has been kind of great, even though it's also been all sorts of dry, but it's given me some good perspective on the milpa system. Oh, and before we move on, I should say, keep sending in both your covers of the theme song and/or I guess you could do both, your 20-second garden videos to farmermike@no-tillgrowers.com, especially on the Southern Hemisphere with those garden videos. We'd love to see what you all are up to, ramping up for the season and what it's looking like down there. All right, so today I thought that coming off of yesterday's conversation about the Resort Town CSA and also prepping you for the second segment about urban farming, I thought I would take a minute to talk about different types of CSAs one could run. Now, CSA, in case you don't know, and because I neglected to really define it yesterday, stands for Community Supported Agriculture, but is essentially a subscription to a farm. The idea being a customer pays the farmer, for their veggies up front, like they would, a magazine, or like we used to with magazines. Pay that up front so that the farmer can budget and buy tools and seeds and such. Then the farmer delivers the CSA throughout the season, basically harvesting what they've got and then dividing it evenly. I've touched on some of the different options before, but I thought I would get into some of the details because there are definitely many different ways to do a CSA, and in fact, so many that I probably will forget a few, so you can fill me in on those. For instance, the classic CSA, this is just paying for the entire crop up front from the customer side, so flowers or veggies or whatever the farmer's farm, and then distributing those throughout the given season. Like, for instance, folks often will sign up in like January through March or something like that, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, for, say, a 20-week season. Then, starting in May, arbitrarily, the farmer will begin giving out the CSA harvest every week for 20 weeks, though some farmers will take, a week off or something, or 2 weeks off in the middle of the summer to catch up on fall stuff and, take a week off. Usually this is all built into the CSA, though, beforehand, so people know it's coming. In most cases, customers do not get a choice in what they get, really, with each CSA share, though some CSAs, the better ones, communicate with their customers about what veggies they want more or less of for the next season. The farmer simply brings the harvest and distributes it as well as they can. Now, the distribution is one place you can see some variation. Some farms pre-pack the shares and just hand the customers a box. Some have the customers come pick out their produce from piles on a table, like take 1 pound of potatoes, 1 bunch of cilantro, 3 cucumbers, etc. Some farmers also have an exchange basket where they will put a few items to start the day that customers can exchange with something that they don't want. Like, so basically, in that line of vegetables that you're picking up, maybe they leave a basket at the end that has some extra tomatoes or whatever in it. And if you don't want your radishes, you can just exchange them for the tomatoes. And then maybe someone later on down the line wants those radishes. Delivering the CSA is also an option for CSA distribution. Basically, have the customer leave a cooler on the porch or somewhere accessible, and the CSA gets dropped right at the house. And usually there is a little bit more of a fee associated with this. We've done all these versions, and they each have their upsides and downsides. Home delivery, depending on what your delivery charges and how far you have to travel, can be the most profitable of those, as long as you do charge a reasonable fee, but it's the least personal. You don't really get to know the customers very well that way, at least not as well as you do in like the pickup style CSA. Delivery can be really profitable. Probably the most profitable would just be not ever having to leave your house, just stacking it in, your cooler or your farm store, farm stand, whatever, and letting people come pick it up right there, so you're not having to travel anywhere. Then there are also other options too, like the CSAs that allow for some choice, for instance. Programs like Harvey, notably not a sponsor, are an option as well for assisting with that sort of choice element, so customers can pick and choose a little more of what they want and don't want, and then farmers can know how much of what to pick. Then over time, in theory, how much of what to grow based on those choices. Also, some CSAs offer a week-to-week share where maybe it costs a little bit more money to do it that way, but people who travel a lot, for instance, in the summertime can say, I want the next 2 weeks, but then I want to skip a week or two after that. Those are, in my experience, a little harder to run because you never know what you're going to need and when you will need it exactly, or how much money you're going to earn week to week. But there will be customers who enjoy that model and maybe are willing to pay a little bit more for it. Instead, we've always just encouraged traveling customers to either simply support us at the farmers market when they're in town, or just let us know when they are in town and then we can put a share together for them, or to just share their CSA with another family. In the winter, some growers will, instead of going every week for a certain period of time, maybe they'll give like every other week, or they'll give one share a month, like a big one. So basically you would sign up for a double share or triple share or whatever, and then you would get one of those in December, one in January, one in February, one in March, something like that, where you'd get just a load of food right at the beginning of the month. That way the farmer has a little bit more time to get that stuff together and a little bit more flexibility because, it's cold and it gets dark really early. Then, of course, there is the market card option that I talked about yesterday, the prepaid card where customers buy a CSA amount worth of veggies up front, but then just come and get what they want or need at the farmer's market or online or wherever throughout the season. Like I said yesterday, what we did for years when we were doing the farmer's market was we would offer like $105 worth of veggies for $100 or $210 worth of veggies for $200. And we would start selling those in like January and February. So the customer effectively gets a handful of items for free. Then they also got added to the pre-order list as kind of like a bonus where they could skip the line at market and then get first dibs on veggies or fruits that were most popular. We got those cards through Square, also not a sponsor, and they worked well for us. I've done a couple segments on tips for growing for a CSA because it is not the easiest style of growing or selling food, but those are some of the CSA design options that come to mind. Maybe at some point I can do more of like a CSA marketing thing because marketing a CSA can be a challenge, asking people to pay up front for that much food, especially in the beginning before you have established a market for it. Anyway, what questions do you all have? What did I miss? Anything I got wrong? Any designs I didn't include? Let me know. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about yard farming. It's kind of a fun phrase, BRB.
Seabreeze Farms, Zone 9B, Klamath, California. Our fall crops, we have poinsettias in our crop house. We have the fall cukes with peas underneath them in the other buildings. Our tomato house is bursting at the seams. And in the front yard, we have our slug-free strawberries and the hanging baskets.
Farmer Claire Coleman here from the Winter Growers Podcast. Did you know that I also founded Real Farmer Care, a nonprofit that supports farmer well-being? From my own experiences farming, I knew firsthand that this type of support was missing from ag, so I decided to do something about it. As of today, there are over 500 farmer recipients of a $100 self-care award, with more applying daily. If you'd like to help, each $100 donated supports one new farmer. Visit realfarmercare.com to donate and learn more. Again, that's realfarmercare.com.
If you, the listener, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to those Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Evelyn, who writes, quote, "Hi, Jesse. My nanny kiddos listen to your podcast with me every day and love it. Haha. I've lived in Los Angeles for about a year and a half now, and I'm workshopping an idea to create a CSA through growing in a series of yards. My wife was born and raised here, and I never would have imagined living in such an urban environment, so looking at the cost of land out here had me frustrated at first. In the end, it forced me to get really creative, and I'm workshopping a yard-based CSA in our neighborhood. I've realized through connecting with more people in our community that most of the individuals who have enough yard space for food production work such intensive jobs that they would never have the time. We live in a studio because, hello, LA housing costs, and I currently garden in a couple of other yards and share produce and quail eggs with them in exchange. I have been learning a lot about soil quality and growing in this climate, and I'm getting ready to try to expand this into a larger project. I would love to hear your thoughts on the feasibility of a project like this because I've been able to find very little information about others doing similar work. My thoughts are to reach out to homeowners in our area and offer a CSA type produce box with a share of what was grown each week in exchange for use of their space, and then offer additional CSA boxes for sale to the majority of individuals in our area who do not have access to growing space. In my mind, it would be mutually beneficial to the homeowners as they both get access to fresh produce and no longer have to pay a gardener to maintain grass in that space. In a climate where so much is able to be grown, empty yard space feels like a hugely untapped resource. Curious about any and all thoughts you might have on this. Thank you again so much for what you do, Evelyn, end quote. Okay, great stuff here, Evelyn. Thank you. So indeed, you're in luck because this is an approach that some urban growers take. In fact, I remember interviewing, I think it was Winter Park Urban Farm many years ago for the No-Till Market Garden podcast about the many yards that they used. In an urban setting like that, I completely agree that a yard is just an untapped resource and often just wasted space for busy people who have to, like maybe you mentioned there, just keep it mowed or maintained, which usually costs some money or some time. First thing I would say is to start small and get a good baseline of properties who you can work with and who will be flexible and understanding as you are starting to grow this business. This will slowly turn into some examples of what you can show to other potential homeowners with yard space. Also, if you can, try to keep these places really close together. I know you said they were in their neighborhood, but really traveling will eat up a lot of time, not to mention the challenge of transporting tools and the harvest every week. Make sure you put together a really solid contract that lays out your expectations for the homeowner, like access throughout the growing season, etc., but also exactly what you will be offering them. You mentioned the share. They need to know that is all it is. Lay out who will pay for water. How will that be measured? How will you keep it clean? How much advance notice you need before you have to take a plot out of production? Like if they want that space back, you really need X amount of months to take it out of production. Really think through that contract and any possible things that could happen throughout the experience, like what if they sell, all those sorts of things to protect yourself, and they'll probably want to protect themselves. And then also think really through that, like expense sharing side, because the last thing you want is someone just locking the gate with all of your veg behind it or turning off the water or whatever. Make sure to build it into the contract what a wind down would look like as well when/if you are done with the plot. Like, what does that look like? What is your responsibility to turn it back into a yard? That sort of stuff. I'm sure there are other urban growers who you could consult about this part. It just may take some proverbial digging. Communication is going to be paramount, as it is in all transactions, but especially here. I can't say it enough, but they should know when to expect you and exactly what to expect by letting a farmer rent their yard. Then, of course, you have to do all the farming stuff, business plan, budgeting, all the good stuff. But like I said, the travel element is going to be no small feat. You really need to think through the efficiency aspect of it. I know parking can be a pain there. Can you do it all from a bike with a small trailer? Can you get a small trailer as a cooler that you can drive around? Also consider potential HOAs and the like. I don't know what those look like in LA, but those could be problematic for the homeowner, so you don't want to inadvertently, step on any toes or get them in trouble. Again, I do like this idea under the right circumstances. I think the water will be a big expense for you, and potentially the traveling, storing of veggies in the central location, tools. But if you can think through it really, really well, you could get access to some really prime real estate for essentially some vegetables, which would be amazing. Anyway, I hope there was something helpful in there, and perhaps others will have some insight on that. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, when to pull those tunnel tomatoes. Be right back.
If you're watching on YouTube, it's fascinating to see the color difference here. This is sweet potatoes with shade from the broom corn and no shade. Dark green, beautiful, lush. Kind of rough from all the drought on this other side. Yellowy. Yeah.
Today's episode of Growers Daily is brought to you by Farmhand. Farmhand is the virtual assistant built for farmers, helping CSAs scale sales, run error-free fulfillment, and deliver 5-star service. Whether you're at 100 members or 1,000, Farmhand helps you grow without burning out. You've heard us and our farmers right here on Growers Daily. Explore farmer wins and learn more at farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. All right, so for this third segment, maybe something a little less CSA oriented, since that feels like it was like the last 3 segments, or at least not directly related. And that is, when does it make sense to pull your tomato plants out of your tunnels if they're not dead? Why, you might ask, would you pull tomatoes out of your tunnels if they're not dead and they're still producing? Well, the short answer is that if you don't pull them out of your tunnels in time, you won't get enough good growth on the winter crops that are going into those tomato spots, and thus the space gets wasted to some extent. This is, in fact, a big debate, or at least a big conversation among growers, because there is no real perfect answer. Part of it is math. How much money are those tomatoes actually earning you anymore versus how much that space could be worth if planted to a winter crop? And part of it is just time. If I wait too long to pull the tomatoes out, will I risk not having the next crop until later in the winter because of how slow everything grows over the next few months? So again, there is no one right answer, which I know is a surprise, but it also depends just on your goals. For instance, if you are not worried about your, like winter production this year, then there really is no rush to pull them, right? If you're not trying to grow over the winter, there's no point in pulling them out unless you just want to clean up that space. Let the winter kill them off, and then you pull them out at your leisure. But if you want a good lettuce crop by December, then it might be necessary to pull them now and go ahead and clean and flip those beds. Or a cover crop. If you want a cover crop, you do have a little bit more time, but not all the time in the world. You will still want to get it planted by mid-November for a winter hardy cover crop, and early October in our zone for a winter killed cover crop, at least in the high tunnel, I mean. Now, you also have the option of just, clearing everything out beneath the tomatoes. I guess I'm referring to weeds in our case, or in our case, sweet alyssum, and then planting that cover crop below the tomato plants that are still just living. Or if it's not a cover crop, maybe you just mulch beneath the tomatoes, and then when they die, and you cut them out. You could also potentially plant a crop beneath the tomatoes while they're still, in situ, if that's not too weedy or crowded, like Swiss chard or kale or something like that needs a decent amount of space. Relaying that crop directly into the tomatoes. The challenge there is soil prep and, of course, sunlight, because if our fall season this year is anything like last year, the tomatoes will just, basically never die. They'll go all the way into mid-November, and when you finally have to do it yourself. What we've been doing in recent years is just letting them go as long as possible like that, and then following them with early spring carrots in January. So that gives us more of, a leisurely approach where once they are dead, we can just take them out as time allows, because that is always a bigger job than it feels like it should be. But also, we have not been going that hard at winter for a few years because I like to rest a little bit sometimes. Anyway, you will find many farmers will just harvest one last big time and then pull them before October 1st, at least here in Kentucky, so they can, have that next crop rolling. And honestly, that's probably what we're going to do this year. But anyway, what say you? How do you approach this conundrum? Let us know. And otherwise, I think that's it for this Tuesday. But before we go, we're going to get a quick word from our friends, speaking of tunnels, at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems. Whether you're growing tomatoes for market all the way up until now, flowers in the spring, or vegetables for your family, growing in a high tunnel protected from the weather provides the right environment for a harvest you can count on. Rimmel greenhouses are strong, durable, and easy to assemble, offering the quality you need to grow productively year-round. The team of experts at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems will be your trusted partners to ensure you get exceptional value from your greenhouse or high tunnel investment. Visit Rimmel.com today to get growing. Don't forget, No-Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Maybe you'll need some sort of tax break next year. You can learn more about how to do that in the show notes. Please make sure to like and subscribe and/or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out. An enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing. Also to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Awesome. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of September, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to no new signups this week, but I do have our earthworms from last month to shout out. So we got lucky there. Big shouts to Pastor Earl, Griffin Miller, Lisa Harrison, Nutrient Dense Farm, Stefan and Lindsay, Dylan Howell, Doug Van Allen, and Robert Allen. Got two Allens there at the end. All right, so you will remember that this week's story, we have a class president, Amy, who was absolutely rolling in her duties all the way through the end of the first semester when a new kid showed up right before Christmas break. Her name was Becca, and she was a troll. That sounds bad, not like that's how Amy thought of her. She was literally a troll. Whatever you can picture a troll to look like, that was Becca. The thing is, only Amy could see it. No one else seemed to think anything was amiss with this new kid. Just another new girl, slightly shy, kind of funny, but otherwise absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. Amy just absolutely could not believe it. She felt like she was being punked. A popular TV prank show of the time that would come under some fire later for being kind of cruel, but it was also still later for some reason revived with Justin Bieber as the host. But anyway, but no, everyone just kind of cruised into the holiday break without a word about the trollness and just treating Amy like she'd lost her mind and was kind of being a little bit rude to the new girl. But no, this Christmas, Amy was going to get to the bottom of all this, and that is for tomorrow, provided we have signups on Who's the Troll Now? I don't know if that's the right title, but it's going to work for now. Thanks for watching and/or listening. We will see you then. Bye.